to Renegade Conversations. My name is Meryl Cook. I'm an artist, a renegade, and the host and creator of Renegade Conversations. My mission is to provide thought-provoking, fearless, and fun discussions with remarkable female rebels who are shaking things up in their respective fields. My hope is to make you question the norms and ignite your own renegade spirit. This episode of Renegade's Conversations is sponsored by my online membership community called Creating Space. Are you ready to make a change, reinvent yourself, make time for self-care? And would you like the company of other like-minded women who are making space for self and creativity? If so, check out Creating Space. We'd love to have you join us. My next guest is April DeConick. And I'm going to read to you from April's bio. April DeConick is an award-winning textile artist and professor of the study of religion at Rice University in Houston, Texas. After decades of writing about mysticism and gnosticism, she has found that words often are inadequate to communicate the deepest aspects of reality. April has turned to art to communicate what cannot be said in words, what must be experienced and felt firsthand about who we are, where we are from, and where we are going. She first learned to stitch rugs, weave, and make ceramics in college, but since then has developed her own artistic practice. She combines hooked, tufted, woven, felted, embroidered, stitched, painted, wired, and ceramic surfaces into vibrant, woven art sculptures and vessels. Her artworks are known for elevating the hook stitch, literally and figuratively. If you haven't had a look at April's work, I'm going to put a link to her website in the show notes. You really need to take a look. April has participated in exhibitions put on by the Art League of Houston, Sawyer's Yards, Texas, and Vision Arts, Texas, and Celebration of Hand-Hooked Rugs, Ohio. In 2018, she was inducted into the Hall of Fame for Hooked Art, and in 2023, she hung her first solo exhibition called Flow Meets Fiber in Gallery 300 in Houston. She operates an art gallery called Studio 220 in the Silos at Sawyer Yards, Houston. So welcome, April DeConick. It's my great pleasure to have this conversation with you.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. April, you and I have never met, but I've been following your art work for several years. I love your bold use of color and your texture and the way that you've combined things like combined ceramics and wire sculpture with hooking. I really love your clothing line that you designed based on photographs of your work. And my sense is that you get an idea and you really go for it. And I love that about your work. I was speaking recently with Deanne Fitzpatrick, a well-known rug hooker, for her podcast, and she and I both thought that you would make just a great guest for Renegade Conversations. So thank you so much for agreeing to hop on Zoom to have this conversation.
Yeah, glad to be here.
So here's a random question, April. What are you drinking today?
Oh, tea.
Tea? Any particular kind?
I do. I brought the bag to show.
Excellent.
This is the tea.
And
the Dunmore East blend.
Nice.
And it's from a company, Simpson and Vale, and they're in Connecticut. And I have been ordering tea from them for 30 years. And this is my very favorite. It's a black tea. It's a blend of, they say India, Sri Lanka, and Kenyan teas. And it has a real almost a very complex taste with a lot of malt flavor in it. I put milk in my tea, so it's really nice.
Sounds wonderful. Well, we'll definitely put the link to that tea and to the place where you buy it in the show notes. So that's great. And I noticed a beautiful mug that you're using. Is that one of the ones that you made?
Yes, it is. It's one of my Santa mugs. It's a Holly Jolly Santa.
It's wonderful, and I love the size of it. It looks like a really lovely size of mug to drink out of.
Yeah, and I like to hold my mug with my hands around it, and
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
the warmth of it.
yeah.
Tea is important to me because it's a drink that when I was real little, my mother let us have, my sister and I.
Nice,
And
nice.
she used to sweeten it with a little bit of sugar and a little bit of cream.
Nice.
And I've since let the sugar go, but
Uh-huh.
the cream, no, you have to have that.
Lovely. My brother was the tea granny in our house. He was my youngest brother, and mom used to always make him tea with like mostly milk and a little splash of tea, and he loved it. So
Yeah.
so April, I have a question for you. What does being a renegade mean to you?
Yeah, I've thought about this a little bit. It means kind of doing things your own way. And I hesitate because renegade can also have a negative meaning. I mean, it can
Mhm.
mean, you know, to be a traitor or to
Yeah,
like to switch sides.
yeah.
And I kind of see the switching sides a little bit in me, and that I tend to work in like you said, one area like rug hooking and become really good in that area, and then I get bored and I move on to something else,
Mhm.
and then I use the knowledge that I've gained in that one field to then blend with the knowledge that I'm learning in another field, and I end up, you know, really creating something unique.
Uh-huh. Yeah, absolutely. I love the way you've kind of pieced together parts of your career, and yeah, I can't say enough about that. That's awesome. And have
Yeah,
you
and you know, as I age, I find that I'm returning to things that I loved as a young woman,
Mm,
that I didn't get a chance to necessarily pursue in my kind of my midlife.
mhm,
And so when I was in college, early on, I was very interested in ceramics, and I actually have more formal training in ceramics than any art.
uh-huh.
And then I also took fiber classes in college. And I
Nice.
thought, oh, is there a way that I can kind of, here's my blending again. I could blend my art with pursuing a PhD in another field. And I just at the time I was so young, I couldn't figure
Mhm.
out how
Yeah,
I could do that.
yeah.
And so I went and pursued the PhD and got my a professional position at first at Illinois Wesleyan University, and then moved here to Houston, and I'm at Rice University now. In I'm a historian of
Uh-huh.
early Christianity,
Oh, cool.
and kind of to keep my anxieties at bay, I started to pick fiber up in in grad school again,
Mhm,
and do some fiber work with the rug hooking.
mm.
And I did that because it was transportable. You
Uh-huh.
know, I
Yeah.
could do it in an apartment or a dorm room, where things like pottery or weaving on a loom or something like this was impossible.
Mhm,
And
mhm.
so now, as a kind of an older adult, or getting to be an older adult, I'm returning to those things like the ceramics that I loved as a young person. And now I can do because I have the space to be able to,
Mhm.
get the equipment and that sort of thing.
That's wonderful. And how old are you?
I'm 60.
Oh, nice. I just turned
I,
67 today. So
yeah,
yeah,
good.
welcome to the
I
60s.
turned 60 last month, and
Excellent.
it was a milestone. I
Yeah,
usually
yeah.
don't birthdays don't bother me, but
Uh-huh.
this one felt significant.
Yeah, yeah. Well, the 60s, in my experience, have been wonderful. They're just a wonderful way to kind of bust out and really, really have a lot of fun and try new things. And not that either of us has ever shied away from trying new things, but we can try even
Right.
more new things now. That's
Oh, good.
wonderful. So, have you always been a renegade?
Yeah, yeah. My mom, I mean, when I was a little girl, she used to say, April, you really march at the beat of your own drum.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And when I was young, that put me at odds with other people because other people couldn't figure me out.
Yeah.
You know, I was always off doing my own thing, and it didn't bother me if somebody thought it was a good or bad thing to do. I mean, I just if I thought it was a good thing, I pursued it. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you. And what impact has being a renegade had on your life or your career? So, for example, what kinds of opportunities or challenges has it presented?
Yeah. So I think it's been hugely beneficial to me, especially, I mean, really in all aspects of my life, but in my professional career as a historian for certain, because it tends to, I tend to look at things differently from other people, including other scholars. And so I'm able to kind of carve a pathway to reinterpret materials and present them in a new way. And it also means that I'm kind of interested in stuff that other people aren't interested in necessarily. I'm really interested in sort of the margins and the intersections of things. And so in studying early Christianity, for instance, I'm not just interested in sort of the story that's always told in the New Testament, but I'm also interested in all this other literature the early Christians were writing. And I just finished a textbook where I integrated all of that material now into the kind of Christian story of kind of how Christianity came to be. So I think it's been really helpful to me to be able to see things differently.
I think so. I think having the stories that have never been told, or the stories that nobody thinks about, is a huge contribution, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and I think part of it is being a woman in a male dominated field. I see things differently. And I'm interested in the voices that kind of were repressed. And I want to, because as women we are, we're repressed, and so this has been a way for me to kind of explore actually my own life as a woman.
Wonderful, wonderful. That's very cool. So this is kind of a strange question, but in grade 5, what kind of a kid were you? Tell me about your grade 5 self.
Again, the teachers didn't really know what to do with me.
I joined the club.
Grade teacher who brought my mom in for one of the teacher conferences. And she said to my mom, April's never going to be more than a C student. Don't, it's just the way it is.
Oh, wow.
And of course, thankfully, my mother never told me that as a 5th grader. I learned about that much later, after I of course proven that wrong.
Yeah, exactly. Were they wrong?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
So
nice.
yeah, I think that I was quiet. I kind of kept myself. I'm always the person that has, like one good friend, rather than a bunch. I don't tend to, like, social events make me nervous. I have a I have a more difficult time in large social settings where I don't know someone.
Yeah. I was telling someone the other day how it takes enormous energy for me to go to a networking event, for example.
I hate
so I
it.
can do it, I can do it. I can go and I can be sociable, but I am just exhausted. You just basically have to ring me out on my way out the door, kind of thing.
Me too.
Yeah. So April, is that one of your designs, the clothing designs that you're wearing today?
Yes, it is. It's a little poncho top.
Nice.
I don't know if you can see it.
Oh, lovely. So you have taken photographs of some of your art, and
so I take photographs of the artwork when it's finished, and then I manipulate it in digitally, and come up with what I consider a kind of organic. I love organic stuff, so like an organic looking pattern. And and then I have a place actually in Montreal, Le Galeriste, and they make all the clothing there. So I send them my images. And they just make it beautiful in terms
Oh,
of
it's
the,
wonderful.
putting it on the clothing and the different shapes and
Yeah,
things. So
yeah. Oh, that's
yeah.
very nice. Good for you. I've really admired that about your work, and I think that sometimes as artists we have these big pieces, and not everybody has room in their home for one, or
Right.
they can only maybe afford to buy one. But everybody needs, a new outfit every now and then. So it's kind
Yeah.
of
So I
a
have
way.
this art studio,
Mhm.
and you have to pay rent.
Yeah, yeah.
So I can't wait for the once or twice a year that a large piece is going to
Yeah,
sell, like an
I hear
art
you.
piece.
Mhm.
And fiber is difficult to sell. I mean, if I were a painter, I probably could sell a lot more paintings.
Yeah, yeah.
They're less expensive, they're faster to do, and people recognize them as artworks.
That's right. And they know how to take care of them, and they're not
Right,
always sure how to take care
right,
of our fiber art.
right.
Yeah,
So
yeah. Absolutely.
I mean, I've always been interested in fashion. When I was 10 years old, my mom bought me a sewing machine, and I
Nice.
used to actually like design my own clothes and sew
Wow,
them and wear them to school. I mean,
that's
this is the
awesome.
kind of little kid I was. It was just
Yeah.
crazy.
Oh,
And
nice.
um, so I thought, well, heck, now with the computer and all these things that we
Yeah.
can do with Procreate and things like that, why am I not, designing some fabrics and
Oh,
having them put on clothing? And then I
oh,
don't have to sew them either.
exactly. That inspires me tremendously. I'm going to have to get in touch with you about this a little bit
Yeah,
more.
look, Galleriste.
Yeah.
I would highly recommend it. They're right there in
Great.
Canada, and they're really great to work with.
Nice. Well, we will also put that link in the show notes so that other
Oh,
people can.
absolutely. I really recommend it. It's
Oh, cool.
you just go there and you open a portal, and
Mm,
you start uploading your images, and you
nice,
can
nice.
select your shapes and put them on there. But
Yeah.
that's really how I've kind of kept the studio going from month to month,
Hmm.
is through
Excellent.
the clothing. I'm
Oh,
hoping I'm
wonderful.
going to start adding some functional pottery. So this month was the kind of first month that I brought in some functional pottery.
Uh-huh.
So
Yeah.
like the little Santa mugs and things
I've been
like that.
admiring it online. I'm wishing I wasn't as far away in terms
I
of
know.
shipping and things like that. Pottery's not so transportable across the border, but
Right.
yeah, great. So April, you have quite a varied art practice, as we know. You combine rug hooking and weaving with ceramics and even wire sculptures. I've seen some amazing wire sculptures that you've hooked into. And as we heard in your bio, you took your work as a professor of religious studies to use art as a way to communicate and to reach out to people on a spiritual level. And this aspect of your work really speaks to me because, as you know, I'm an artist who, my art is all about becoming and expressing my inner wild self and encouraging other people to do the same. So, can you say something about how your art helps you to speak out and connect with others in a way that transcends words?
Yeah, sure. So as a professor, I've already said I'm kind of interested in the margins of things,
Mhm.
and I'm particularly interested in Christian groups in antiquity that are called Gnostics. These were Christians who felt that having faith was kind of a first step,
Mhm.
but to actually experience God firsthand was what it was all about.
Mhm.
So they set up sort of these practices and so forth in order to elicit these kind of events, these
Mhm.
Gnostic events where they
Mm.
said that they, would actually experience a God
Mm.
and God's transcendence.
Mm.
And so I've just discovered that, we can talk all about this, and I can write all about it, but the experience of that is something very different.
Uh-huh.
And for me, art is the way that I've been able to kind of communicate that
Mhm.
through either the art in terms of just its sheer beauty,
Mhm.
but also the fiber is really unique in that when people come into my studio, they express awe just like immediately,
Mhm.
and they feel they tell me they feel like they of course want to touch the artworks, right? Which I let them. I'm like, it's touchable, do it, you know.
I agree.
But they feel like they're being wrapped in love. Like it's that feeling that they get just because of that kind of tactile wool fiber thing going on. And I do a lot of work where I'm I extend the hooking out, so it's doesn't really look like hooking anymore. It's very tactile, and it's there's a lot of knotting and hanging fiber, and so people are really entranced with that. I also do a lot of cutout. I'm interested in negative space. And so the cutout for me is that void that I'm asking people to look into and to think about, hey, what's behind things or what's underneath things? I'm interested in communicating that as well. That reality that we see, that there's other realities that are behind that reality or supporting that reality.
And one of your pieces in particular that's coming to mind as you're talking about it is you've done a ceramic piece, I believe, that's like a face, and then you've created holes so that you can then insert the fiber, and the face is just kind of flowing down. I don't know if I'm describing properly,
that is actually painted. So that's a painted surface.
Okay.
So she's painted right on the foundation.
Oh, okay.
Okay. And then she's suspended from the ceramic wave. So I did a solo exhibition this summer called Flow Meets Fiber. And again, it's that idea for me for spirituality, how the flow, you can call it the flow, the force, whatever you want to call it. When I'm doing my artwork, I'm in that, whatever that is. I mean, and it's beautiful. I love it. And my artwork is pretty unplanned. I might have an idea for color. Like, okay, today I really want to work in something red. But I don't have much more planned than that. So I usually start with out in my garage, and I build a ceramic piece. I've been building these beautiful waves of ceramic that you can see that are the armatures for a lot of the tapestries. And then once that piece is finished, I know the size, you know, that I'm going to be working at, and I'll cut my backing to kind of fit that size. None of them are square anymore. They're all organic.
That's wonderful. I love
and
that.
I dye some wool up, and then I just start hooking it in, and you know, something happens. Now on a painted piece, I'll know, okay, I want to do a painted piece, and I want this face, and somewhere I'll position it there, so I know that that's going to be there. But yeah, it's all pretty organic.
I love that. I love that. It's wonderful. So April, is there a line or a shape that would define you? This is a question that I often ask at my workshops. It's a way of getting people to kind of think outside the box and think about themselves as a line or a shape. What would that look like?
Yeah, so I like organic lines. So like those waves that are behind you. Yeah, that's the you know, this undulating shape. Is what I like. And it can be horizontal, it can be vertical, but I like the flow. And again, that's a spiritual thing, right? That we're in this flow, that this is life. It flows along, and we, you know, either go with it or swim against the current. I mean, one of the two.
Exactly. And so what really typifies your art and also your life has been this kind of undulating flow that you've followed.
I think that's right. Yeah.
Nice. Oh, that's wonderful. I love that question because I get such different answers from everyone, and it's very cool. So April, what advice do you have for women who want to access more of their inner wild self or their renegade self? Do you have any advice that you could share?
Don't be afraid of it. When I teach art, I find that people are afraid. I mean, that's generally what, is stopping people. So whatever that takes to either like just say, okay, I realize I'm afraid, but it's not going to stop me, or whatever it is. But I've also thought a lot about why people are afraid. And I think from what I see, most of it has to do with they're afraid of failing. Like they're going to make something that's ugly.
Yeah.
And I'm saying, like, make it ugly.
That's
like,
right.
it's okay. And, like, you know what?
Yeah,
If you don't
yeah.
like it, you can, like recycle it.
Exactly.
You know,
Especially
you can-
rug cooking. You can really
you just
recycle
pull
it.
it
Yeah.
out. It's
Yeah.
like so
Mhm.
easy. So it was
Yeah.
some time, but it was good time. You spent it, with your hook. So
Exactly.
I have found that the only way that I've moved forward with my art is by experimenting.
Mhm.
And if I don't know, let's say like you're like, I don't understand, like, what am I supposed to experiment with? Okay, then I would say go and start taking classes, art classes, and there's so many good online ones now.
There are.
Not in rug hooking,
Right.
okay?
Just in art
Or
in
whatever
general.
whatever your field, but in something else.
Yeah.
Because that something else will then you'll learn something new that you then will like blend with the knowledge you already have, and then you'll start experimenting.
Exactly. Yeah.
And
Start
so
a
like
whole
a
new
good
direction.
example of this is this summer, I decided that I was going to take from the Fiber Arts, what are they called? Fiber Arts 2. That might be wrong.
Okay.
They're out of Australia.
Oh, yeah.
And Harriet Goodall was giving a class in basket making. And so I was like, oh, those are gorgeous baskets. I've never made a basket before. I'm going to take this class.
Yeah.
So it's an absolutely fabulous class. I highly recommend it to people.
Yeah.
And anyway, one of the exercises that she had us do was learn how to do wiring, and like in a random weave, and create a basket.
Oh,
And then
nice.
she had us put gauze over top of it and with glue, to like stiffen it up. And then that was supposed to be like the project. So I did this, and I ended up with this, basket with this gauze glued on it. And I'm like, this has got to be the ugliest thing I've ever made. And it was super frustrating because that gauze with the glue, and I mean, it was just coming off the basket. Yeah. It was terrible. Okay. So I get this thing made, and I'm like, okay. I'm looking at it, and I'm thinking, you know what? That's a shell, and it's over wire. I wonder if I could punch the hook through there and I could hook on that surface. So I got my hook out and punched it through. I'm like, hey, this worked. Like, I can do this.
Awesome.
So I created this basket, and it was beautiful. And I thought, okay, now this is really cool, because for like 15 years, I've been trying to figure out how to make like hooked sculptures that weren't just like a floppy sculpture. I really wanted to, and I tried chicken wire, I tried all these things, and it was just, I could never get it to work. Never dawned on me, I could actually like wire my own basket and, so forth.
Yeah.
So the next round, I think I'm going to do this again, but this gauze is just like not going to work because it's just too icky and messy. So I got my linen out, and I, cut a pattern to fit around the globe, and I hand sewed it on there, and gol darn, I can hook through that really simply. And now I can create any shape I want.
Oh, it's wonderful. So your advice is, even if people aren't artists, it's try something new and go and learn something that might not at the first surface seem like it's going to apply to your life, but it actually might.
It will always apply.
Yeah.
It will always apply. And I mean, if it doesn't integrate with what, like a practice you already do, it may start a new practice for you. So,
excellent.
And don't give up. Like, don't give up on a first thing and like, oh, that was hard, or I don't like the product. Just keep going, keep doing it. And, practice makes a difference.
It does. Yeah. Wonderful. Thank you so much for that advice. And my last question is, do you have a question for me?
So I'm wondering about you as a renegade.
Well, I've always been a renegade. I was always the kid who asked too many questions, who asked why too many times. In high school, I think I was mortified to get this comment in my yearbook. It was, "To the most different girl I know." So just like you had said that being a renegade is great in many aspects, but it can also be a little bit lonely at times because you're the different kid. Now, as an older woman, I'm like, who cares? Like, so I don't care what people think in the same way that I did when I was a kid. And yeah, I've always been a renegade. My mom always said, "Oh, we never know what she's going to do, but we know it's going to be different." And I think that
That's so good.
I think she grew to appreciate me. My mom was a rug hooker for many years, 40 years, and she was a very traditionally taught and traditional rug hooker. And she really didn't like my hooking when I started because, of course, I wanted to break the rules. I didn't want to learn fine shading first, or to take a dyeing class first, or whatever the whole process was. And she thought my work was kind of messy. But I think over time she appreciated it a little bit more. So yeah, I've always been a renegade. Hence my desire to start Renegade Conversations, where I could find a tribe of other renegade women to get to know and to interview. So
nice. I wonder if it's a personality. I was thinking about that. I was, kind of thinking toward this interview is this a personality type?
Well, I think that I've interviewed, I think six people now for my conversations, and 5 out of the 6 have said they've always been outspoken. They've always been kind of the squeaky wheel. One of the women said, she spent her entire schooling in a desk out in the hall, schooling herself basically. and another person said, well, my report cards always said, she talks too much. And I certainly had those report cards as a kid too. I just couldn't contain myself if there was something I wanted to say. I'm still a little bit like that. So
I think I was just bored.
Yeah. Well, we like a lot of variety for sure. When we're rule breakers, we want to try different things. We want to, yeah. Anyway, thank you so much, April. This has been just wonderful, and I hope that we'll connect again. But thanks for taking the time to have this conversation with me. Your work is so exciting, and I'm very happy to have learned more about it and to connect with you. I hope this episode has left you feeling inspired and ready to channel your own renegade spirit. If you need a little help getting started, please reach out to me. And be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel for more Renegade Conversations. They're also available wherever you get your podcasts in an audio version. Thank you.
Thanks so much.